Welcome to the Transformational Storyteller Podcast. The stories we tell ourselves and others shape the lives we lead. I'm your host, Dara Lise Lyons. Welcome to another episode of the Transformational Storyteller Podcast. I am so excited to talk to my guest today, Bobbi Block. We have done improv together in the past, and she is a Philadelphia improv icon. She's funny, she's real, she's deep, and I'm very excited to hear more about her personal and professional journey and about just what she does to take everyday people's stories and turn them into something different and something extraordinary.
So one of the most memorable or magical moments that I can recall with my company, Tongue and Groove, is that we asked the audience to write on cards answers to provocative questions. And for this particular show, we asked people, who are you? So people would write, I'm a mom who doesn't like kids, or I'm a painter who also works in accounting. So people wrote down who they were, and then we used those cards to inspire our improvisation. So we reach into the basket, one of the actors reaches into the basket and reads the card, and it says, I am a dreamer. And then the other actor on stage at that moment reaches into the basket and pulls out a card, and she looks at it and she goes, I am a dream maker. And everybody just was like, what? How did that happen? And so that was it. We didn't even do a scene. We just left it at that, reading these two cards from the audience. And we're like, oh, wasn't that cool that we just happened to get I'm a dreamer and I'm a dream maker? So that was great. And then we end the show. And after the show, we're talking about things, and we're meeting some folks from the audience, and we met these friends of mine who are a couple. And I said, wasn't that a cool moment when we got those two weird cards? And the woman says, yeah, actually, that was mine. I'm a dreamer. And her husband looks at her and he goes, that was my card. I'm a dream maker. So we actually picked the couple's cards in the show, and they didn't know that they had written those cards, and we brought it to life in front of them. And it was just a really cool, magical moment that didn't even really have to do with us improvising anything. It was just a beautiful way of people connecting, which is what Tongue and Groove is all about.
I found that story so moving about the couple, just having this shared commonality that they weren't even aware of. And if one of the things that you love are moving stories, one of our show sponsors, Loving Healing Press, has generously offered a 15% off discount to any viewers or listeners of the Transformational Storyteller Podcast on any of their books or products, their audiobooks. And to take advantage of that discount, just go to www.lhpress.com and enter the coupon code DARALISE for 15% off at checkout. That's www.lhpress.com and the coupon code DARALYSE. Bobbi, thank you so much for being here today. I'm really, really grateful.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah. Well, and so I love the story that you told about that couple having that shared moment and that commonality. And I want to tell people a little bit, because if people haven't seen Tongue and Groove, which is your improv company, talk a little bit more about that particular format of improv.
Great. So Tongue and Groove is a combination of comic and dramatic improvisation. So what we're really trying to capture is real relationships, real people, real experiences, and reflect that on stage. So, real life is really funny, and real life is not so funny sometimes. So we just go wherever it takes us. So a show, a tongue and groove show could be like 80% laughs with like 20% sweetness, or like, a gasp, or oh wow, that's intense, something like that. So there's a mix of tone. The other thing about tongue and groove is that we get a lot of information from the audience, which is a little different than what an audience might be used to in typical improv, right? So, obviously you do.
Yes,
you do comedy sports, and have you done long form as well?
Yeah.
So you know that like most of the time you'll get one suggestion and you'll sort of riff off of that suggestion. And what we do at Tongue and Groove is we take as many suggestions from the audience as possible and try to riff off of all of it. And the suggestions are about the audience's personal life. And what we're asking is anything from like, tell us a secret that you keep, or what's something you want to do before you die, or what's a decision that you're struggling with. Or we did one about food, like what's a great food memory that you have, right? So anything that's personal, and then they write it down on cards anonymously, so they feel safe and comfortable doing that, throw it in the basket, and then we pick as many of them as we can throughout a show. And then we use them to riff off of and inspire our improvisation.
And one of the things that I love about that, because I actually had you all come and do a performance once where we were talking about sex and sexuality and intimacy.
Yeah.
Like, people will really tell you some things that they might not tell anyone, and then we'll see that reflected on stage. So how do you find that people are able to be so vulnerable in such a public setting?
What a great question. I love that question. It's something that we've discovered along the way. We were surprised at that as well. It started with our original show, Secrets. And, we were asking people, just tell us a secret that you're keeping. And we thought that we'd get some interesting secrets. But we got some really heavy duty secrets. Some standout secrets that I remember are, my husband is Jewish, and I had our children secretly baptized. Oh my God. I know. Or, things about gender. I was born this gender and nobody knows. Or, I don't know, a bunch of different really deep things. And we try to honor those secrets and take good care of them in our show. And I think people like the idea of the anonymity and the safety, and what we're about is connecting, right? And as you're advocating, like through storytelling and just sharing and being vulnerable, people feel more likely to share more, right?
Well, yeah, and it's so interesting because there is that anonymity, because people are, they write their secrets on a slip of paper, but there's also like this recognition and this visibility that happens because they're then in the audience seeing you portray something that is somehow connected to their life, right?
Yes. Yeah. So it's about being seen and heard as well, because what we are trying to take their lives and make it into, or let it inspire, a little piece of art, right? So we're doing a little scene that was inspired by you. And what we do is we don't take exactly what's written on the card and act it out.
Yeah.
We take it and we let it spark our own creativity. So they're like our partners in being a co-artist with us, right? So you're the inspiration, and now we're gonna make something of it. It's not like we're telling your story, because we could never tell their story. They're just giving us a little blurb from it. So that's what I like about it. I really feel like we're collaborators in the art making.
Yeah, well, and I want to talk a little bit about how, because you'd been doing improv in other scenarios and other settings leading up to this format. So what was the inspiration for you in creating Tongue and Groove and this particular way of being inspired?
Yeah. So I've done a lot of different kinds of improv. I started out with comedy sports, which you are in.
Yes.
Comedy sports is short form improv, which is games, and it's all wacky and fun and silly and big imagination, lots of energy. And then I also did something called playback theater. Are you familiar with playback?
No, and even if I were, I would tell you to tell us about it.
Yes, of
So,
course.
Yeah.
But I think you should be familiar with playback.
Okay.
I think you'd really dig it.
Yeah.
So playback is an international art form that takes people's stories, their whole stories, and plays them back to the audience using theater, but also movement and music. So there's an improvisational musician, and then there's usually people who are either dancers or into movement. So I was part of a playback group in Philadelphia.
Okay.
And that's where I really, really got into this idea of taking people's stories. And it was just it's a very moving art form. So it really feels like you're just giving a gift to the audience by playing back their story. So I did comedy, sports, I did playback, and then I did long form improv, and I was with a company called Lunch Lady Doris for 12 years. And Lunch Lady Doris did, ridiculous, surreal, funny, long form improv, long scenes, right?
Yes.
So basically I took comedy, sports, playback, and Lunch Lady Doris and combined that with my acting, right? So I have a degree in theater, so I've done scripted acting. So I put all that together, and then I was also, there's one last piece, I was inspired by TJ and Dave. Do you know TJ and Dave? Well, I'll explain to you and your audience.
Yeah.
So TJ and Dave are basically like the world's best improvisers.
Okay.
You can look them up anywhere. They're based in Chicago. They're both actors. They've been on television and all kinds of stuff. But they do a play, like a 1-hour play, just the two of them, and they play all the roles. And they actually don't get any suggestion from the audience.
Really?
Their tagline is "Trust us, this is all made up."
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. So I was inspired by them because they also don't care if it's funny or serious. They do a mix of both. So take all of that and go back 13 or 14 years. And I felt like, I want to do something that isn't all wacky and surreal. I want to do something that takes improv and elevates the art form and really makes it like a piece of theater.
Yes.
That has the integrity of something that is scripted. It has like a dramatic arc, and it just hangs together well, like with a playwright's real, firm grasp on playwriting. And acting, that you really have to be a good actor. And we don't shy away from, physical, like kissing and or pushing each other around on stage or whatever. Like everything that is like in a scripted play, but it's not scripted. So it has that tension of like, oh my God, they're making this up. I can't believe it. So I wanted to do all of that, and then also get a lot of information from the audience because of the playback thing. So I took all of that, like, I keep counting how many different influences I had, and I was like, that's the kind of theater I want to do. So I cast actors who could improvise and improvisers who could act. And we worked for almost a year on creating this format and this style, like this particular style of how to improvise. And then Tongue and Groove was born.
Wow. And what was the inspiration for the name?
So the name is, I love this story because we worked for 3 months to find a name.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
And we have like email threads of different names going back and forth, and like we'd write them on pieces of paper and put them in a pile. We really wanted the best name. We wanted the name to indicate being connected. We also wanted the name to indicate being vulnerable and open. So for a while, we had the word naked in there.
Okay.
So it came down to, we were playing with the name Naked Web.
Okay.
Naked Web was possibly going to be our name. And then I said, what's something that makes things connect, like in a very strong but seamless way? And then somebody said, well, when you put floorboards together, they fit together like that, and it's called Tongue and Groove. So literally, like wooden floorboards fit together like that, tongue in a groove. And I was like, yeah, and we all kind of liked it. It sounded a little groovy and like musical in a way, but it also sounded like a little sexy.
Yes.
Yeah, and like it definitely means seamlessly connected. So Naked Web was out, thank God.
I know, because that would have been a whole different crowd would have been coming to your shows.
Right. No, Tongue and Groove was it, and I love our name. I really do. Like, we put a lot of work into it, and we, we're going on 13 years together, and the name is a good one to live with for 13 years. Right.
Well, and so you keep saying we, right? I mean, and improv is very collaborative. It's very, dynamic in that way, and who you're improvising with matters. Who is still, are you still primarily the same original cast, or has that shifted over the years?
Yes, so yes, you're absolutely right. Improv is totally collaborative. It is not a solo sport, right? It's, it's no mistake that comedy sports uses this format of sports to present improvisation, because I really do think it's like a team sport versus an individual sport. You really rely on your teammates. So with Tongue and Groove, we started with 10 people in Tongue and Groove. And over the years, different people had to leave. I mean, they had whatever lives.
Life happens.
Right. Yeah. They moved or they whatever. And then I'd have to replace people. So now we have 12 people, and only one of them is the original. Wow. Yeah, it's sad that only one is the original. In addition to you? In addition to me. Like me and one other person are the original members. Wow. Yeah. But we did, on our 10th anniversary, we had a reunion show, and all of the members except one were able to get together for our reunion show, including a member whose name is Adam Gertler. Yep. And he lives in LA, and he is on the Food Network. He does a lot of work on the Food Network. Wow. He went from improvising with Tongue and Groove to going to Who's the Next Food Network Star? Do you know that show?
No, but
it's like a reality show of like competing to be the next Food Network star. And he got really far in that reality show, and they basically offered him a TV show. And so then, like, he was like, "Hey, Bobbi, I can't be in Tongue and Groove anymore. I'm moving to LA tomorrow." So, so that was that. Anyway, but as soon as Adam heard that we were doing an anniversary show, he's like, "I'm on a plane. I'm there." So it was really lovely to improvise with the original group. I love my group. I love every member who's been in Tongue and Groove. But, we really formed something together, and it was really great.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I mean, you're talking about like the intimate power, the power of those intimate relationships and connections. And I wonder if the format that you use to do improv, if that informs some of the closeness, because you're not going for laughs, you're going for depth, and laughs happen, but that's not the thrust.
Exactly. Yes, absolutely. So one of the things that we do before every rehearsal, or part of every rehearsal, is we do something called an emotional check-in, where we go around and we tell each other how we're feeling. And we're not allowed to interrupt. We just let the person talk for a minute or 2 minutes. So we go around and we do that, and then we use what we learned about each other in our work. So, if somebody's going through, a relationship breakup, there seem to be a lot of relationship breakup scenes that will happen at rehearsal that night. Or if somebody is going through something at their job, or some it's not all bad things, like happy, wonderful things. It's used in the show. So my style of improv, which I call actors improv, uses a typical acting skill, which is to go into yourself and use your own truth and your own stories to inform your art. So a lot of writers, you're writers, so they're told write what you know, right? So some writers are researchers, and they'll research and write about that, but other writers write what they know. Yeah. So I teach improv what you know. Like specifics, use real names of real people and real places and real things in your life and real things that have happened to you, and sort of blend fact and fiction as you're improvising. But always the well is in here, like take from here take from your partner,
right,
whatever
yeah.
your partner's giving you. And then if you're in an ensemble, basically whatever my ensemble says in an emotional check-in is like fodder for us to use in a scene. It's like safe for us to use to inspire our work. And then of course when we get in front of the audience, we're using their life to inspire it.
I love that warm-up though, because I feel like it is, I mean, it really is a microcosm of the macrocosm, because that's what you do with your audience. It's like you are taking people's real check-ins
Exactly.
and then reflecting them with, a level of safety and tenderness, because
Yes.
someone's not going to want to share like, hey, I'm going through a breakup, and then have everybody sort of like poke fun at that.
Exactly,
Right.
exactly. And we work hard to make sure we don't do that. And one year, it was just two Fringes ago, Fringe Festival, we performed at the Fringe Festival. We decided, hey, one question we haven't asked our audience yet is, how are you feeling? Because we check in every single week with how are you feeling? And so we did a show called Feel, and we asked the audience, how are you feeling?
Did people have a wider range of emotions than just mad, glad, sad, and frad? Or
I
whatever
love that you asked that, because we thought that they would have trouble because people are not used to actually talking about their feelings.
Yeah.
So we gave them a cheat sheet.
Oh.
So we put in the program a bunch of emotion words, and we said, feel free to use any of these emotion words or any emotion word that you want. Because I teach improv at Temple University and Drexel University, and I teach them emotional check-ins, because I teach them short form, fun, wacky stuff, and then we move into the deeper stuff. And I found early on that I had to give them a cheat sheet of emotion sheets, because they didn't know how to say anything but mad, sad, glad.
Yeah.
Frad.
Right. Yeah, which is so startling to me. I feel like one of the things that improv has unlocked, for both improv and acting have unlocked for me, is a wider range of like, I guess more access to my own vulnerability. And so I find that I have more access to sadness and loneliness and all the stuff that is labeled negative emotions, but also that has opened me up so much more to laughter and joy. And do you find?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's the joy of being an actor, right? I mean, it's sort of on the surface, like we can grab it quickly, but it's something you have to practice, right? Actors, they're practicing their skill. And one skill that they have is being able to tap into what their intention is, what their emotion is, all of those good things. And other people who aren't practicing being actors, they need to sort of stir the pot, like get the emotions stirred so that they can be available to talk about or use in their everyday life, or if they're studying improv, how to use it in improv.
Well, so Bobbi, for you, what was the inspiration? And it might be, you might have two different answers, but I wanted to ask the inspiration for you to get into acting and then to get into improv. And again, it might have been the same entry point, but I'm curious.
So acting, I have no idea what inspired me. It was just always there.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I just always performed, in grade school and middle school and high school and all that. After high school, I was like, oh, that's good. Now you're a grown up. Now you're not going to act anymore. You're going to be serious. And then I went to college and I auditioned for a play, and that was the end of that. Okay. And then after college, I was like, all right, and then leave that. You got to get a job. And then I was like, I can't do that. So then I went to grad school and I acted in grad school. It's just that is sort of innate. Improv, never studied it in undergrad or grad school.
Okay. Wow.
Because a lot of universities don't teach improvisation, which makes me crazy. So for those who are unfamiliar, you can get a theater degree and you'll take voice lessons and you'll take movement lessons and you'll do all kinds of things to work on all of your skill sets. But improvisation is, for many university programs, is not part of a core curriculum.
Which is ridiculous to me, because when you're acting, especially if you're acting on stage, if you forget a line or if you lose a moment or I mean,
it's crazy.
Wow.
And not only that, it's the one form that teaches you how to be present, right? So improv is about listening. Improv is about listening. So when I teach improv, it's about what did she just say? Not what should I say next? What should I say next? Everybody think that's the myth of improv. They think that all improvisers have like this giant storehouse of amazing ideas, and all they need to do is like open up a drawer in their brain and it'll come right out, right? So it's not about what clever, awesome thing should I say. It's about what did she just say and how can I build on it, right? So that's yes and, which again, for those who don't know, yes and is the building blocks of improvisation. Say yes, I accept your offer. And say and I'm gonna give you something, I'm gonna build on it. Yes. So anyway, back to your question, I never studied improv. I saw a little tiny ad on the back of this Philadelphia City paper, which is rest in peace, no more. And the little tiny ad was auditions for Comedy Sports. And I was like, okay, I'm an actor, I'm gonna audition for whatever. And I was scared of improv, but I was like, I can do that. So I auditioned for it and I got in, and Comedy Sports is a national chain. Yes. So a guy from Washington had come up to Philly to start a new one. So I was in that. And then that guy had no idea how to run a business, so he ran the business into the ground in about 6 months. And then a bunch of us were like, this was too much fun to stop doing. Like, I want to do this more. So 4 of us, like 3 of my friends from college, happened to get into the group together. We decided to refound the company, and then 27 years later, it's still running.
I didn't actually know that story, and I'm a member of Comedy Sports, but I love that. Yeah. So if not for that random little ad in that paper.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I learned everything about improv games on the job with Comedy Sports. Then when I started getting like more thirsty for it, and it turned something on in me that I really liked, then I went to Chicago for a summer. And Chicago is sort of the
like the mecca of improv.
The mecca, great.
Yes.
I was looking for the right word. So I went to Chicago for a summer, and I took classes at IO, which is called Improv Olympic IO, the Annoyance Theater, and Second City, and those are like the 3 big schools. Yes. And I just ran around and took classes, and then I felt like I had educated myself. And then I would go to New York and take classes. So I felt like I just continued to educate myself for a while, and then just integrated into my own skills.
Well, and interestingly, so, having both a background in acting and a background in improv, a more recent background in improv, but do you feel like they require different skill sets, or do they tap into different things within you?
No, I think that the best actors are good improvisers, and the best improvisers are good actors. I really think that it used to be so separate. I mean, really separate. And I think lately there have been more overlap. I think improvisers are more brave to try acting, and scripted actors are less brave to try improv.
Yeah.
Like, I worked with a bunch of scripted actors for a project a long time ago called Leap.
Okay.
And it was basically taking like some of the best scripted actors in Philadelphia and teaching them improv skills and putting on a show. And a lot of the actors that I talked to were like, yeah, no, I can't. I need my script. I couldn't possibly do that. Wow. They were scared of it.
See, that's funny. I'm the reverse, because after I've done acting for a while, and then I took some time off to do improv, and now I'm doing some more acting, I miss when I have a script. I'm like, oh, but you mean I have to say these words? I can't make stuff up. I can't just do what I want.
Well, because you're a writer also, so you
right.
like that idea. So improvisers are actors, writers, and directors all in one.
Yes.
Yeah. And you need skill sets in all of that. And as far as these scripted actors, all they need to do is be a little vulnerable and put themselves back in beginner's mind and build up a few skills, and then they'll be good improvisers. Like, anybody can learn the skills of improv. They just need to be willing to sort of take a step back a little bit.
Well, and that's interesting, when you talk about beginner's mind, and that's a yoga concept, it's a mindfulness concept, it comes from a lot of different things, but I wonder, as someone who has years of experience in the field, like how do you bring beginner's mind to something that you've done over and over again?
Wow, you ask good questions. That is a great question. I try to challenge myself to do different improv things, but I must say that there's been there's a period of time in the past, 5 years or so, where I feel like, wow, I'm just comfortable. I'm like super, super comfortable, and maybe I should shake that up a bit, right? So like, I used to do rap improv, right?
Yeah.
And I haven't done it in a really long time, so I took this improv rap workshop, actually with Freestyle Love Supreme. Do you know Freestyle Love Supreme?
Yes. Lin-Manuel Miranda.
Yes. Well, I didn't take it with him, but
yeah.
I took improv rap with Freestyle Love Supreme,
Wow.
which was awesome. And it turned something on in me again, like, oh yes, this is challenging for me. I don't feel so comfortable.
Yeah.
And that was really good for me to learn how to do that. And then just the other night in Tongue and Groove, I was like, hey, let's just try to improvise for 30 minutes straight without being episodic, because what we do is like 4-minute scenes and then another 4-minute scene and then another 4-minute scene. And we don't do like a book show. That's something I've actually never done.
Wow.
So I wanted to try that because I want to shake it up a bit. I want to be in beginner's mind about this art form.
Well, and that's an interesting dichotomy, whether it's in improv or in life, right? Like, I think sometimes we do get in these comfort zones and it feels safe and it feels good, but then there's that sense of like, oh, but something is missing. Yeah. And so how do you get yourself, and I think this is interesting for people to apply to their own lives, like, sometimes one time I had a therapist tell me that good is the enemy of great. Like, and so how do you?
I love that phrase. Right? I love that phrase.
So like, how do you get yourself to reach for great when it's already really good? I don't know. Does that ever come up for you?
Well, it's improv, so every single show is different.
Yeah.
So I think that's what it is. It's like, we'll do, say, 10 shows, same performers, same rehearsal process, same everything. And, one of those shows might not be so good. And I'll be super disappointed. And then I have to remember, it's improv. Every time you go out there, it's new. And so I don't feel yet that good is the enemy of great for improv.
Yeah.
I think it could be the enemy of great for things that are set in life, but in improv, it's never set. So, I suppose having that, like, every so often a pretty crappy show, not really crappy. Wouldn't want our audience to think that anything that we do is crappy. But something that isn't as satisfying to me as I feel like we could have done. That's probably a good thing, because it keeps you moving towards great and not satisfied with good.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that improv has given me in my life is like this willingness to yes and life, like this willingness to, when opportunities are presented or when things come my way that might be unexpected, or when I do feel like I'm stuck in a rut, to be able to say like, like, let me heighten this in some way. Let me reach for something unfamiliar. And do you find that in your life?
Well, I was just going to ask you.
Go ahead.
But did you not do that before studying improv? Do you feel like it really was like before improv I was this kind of person, and after improv I was that kind of person?
So that's an interesting question. I feel like for me, if I weren't the kind of person who took risks, I never would have done improv in the first place.
There you go.
So I had that in me, like, ultimately, but I'm also a very type A, very controlling, like, sort of like a meticulous, like, I'm gonna get things done in the way I want them to be done kind of person.
Right.
So I think improv gave me a little more access to my fun, spontaneous, experimental side. And so I think I learned a lot from improv, and it brought out more of those qualities in me that were already there. So it's this interesting dance, I think, for me. What about for you?
Okay, so I resonate with that a lot. I call myself a recovering control freak.
I'm not recovering yet, but
I am. I'm totally recovering. I feel like I was very rigid. Very I like to get like that thing that you just did. I did that too. I really feel like studying improv for 20 whatever years has totally affected me. I mean, I can't point to, there's a couple things that I could point to maybe in therapy or a book that I read that had the effect. But when you're improvising, it's a practice. It's like yoga or playing basketball. It's anything you have to practice. So every time I practice doing improv, I'm practicing being more flexible, being a better listener, being less controlling. When I started improvising, I was probably already 10 years into it. I still consider that starting improvisation. I got some coaching from a guy named Mick Napier. Do you know who Mick Napier is?
No.
He is a big guru in Chicago, and he directed a lot of Second City shows, and he founded the Annoyance Theater. Anyway, so he has this way of diagnosing everybody's improv issue, and basically he looked at me and he goes, "You gotta stop talking. You gotta shut up." And I was kind of floored, but that was exactly the right thing to tell me, because I would talk a lot in an improv scene because I would be trying to fix it and make it go the right way. And that was the best advice that he ever gave me, and that's good advice for me in life too, because I don't know if you noticed, but I can talk a lot.
Which is great for this.
Okay, so just stop talking and let things happen. And trust in the process. You're not alone up there. You don't have to guide everything.
I love that.
Yeah, it was really good.
I feel like that's a really good segue into, I had wanted to ask you a question about applied improv. And I think you just talked about it a little bit, but I want you to kind of talk a little bit more about what that is and how you do that work.
Thanks for the segue. You're such a good interviewer. Yes, so applied improvisation is taking the skills of the improviser and applying them to anything off stage, anything. So when I do applied improv programs, which I do basically for my living, that's how I make money, I go into corporations or any kind of organization, nonprofits or any group, and I teach listening skills, the ability to recover when you make a mistake, the ability to truly collaborate and not just pay lip service to collaboration, but really let go of your agenda and build on what the other person is giving you. I teach leadership skills, I teach team skills. There's so many skills that you can glean from improv exercises and the art of improvisation. So I take those skills and I'll go into an organization and I'll play an improv game with a lot of intention behind it, right? And then I'll say, okay, what skills did it take for you to play that game well? And they'll say, I really had to listen. I never listened so much. Or I really had to commit to my choice. I couldn't be wishy-washy about it. And then we'll start talking, all right, how can you apply that to having a better work relationship, or being more productive at work, or being a better listener, a better boss, or a better teammate at work. And then we really just get into a debrief using an improv exercise and apply what they just experienced, experiential, in your bones, in your brain, in your heart. They experience it, and then they can more easily apply it.
So Bobbi, if someone were watching or listening and felt like, oh, that's something I want to know more about, or maybe I want an applied improv session for my company or something, how do they get in contact with you to either see a Tongue and Groove show or set up an applied improv consultation or something like that?
Well, you can go to the website. Tongue and Groove has a website, tongue-groove.com. And that you can find out all about our shows. We have a show coming up in February for Valentine's Day or Valentine's Month. The show is called In Bed.
Oh, I love it.
And the question is, tell us something interesting that has happened to you in or around a bed. And it's it's throughout the month of February, and it's for people who hate Valentine's Day, people who love Valentine's Day, for anybody, straight, coupled, LGBTQ, poly, everybody, because we're telling your stories. So if you are not about love, come tell us a story that happened in bed that has nothing to do with love.
Yes.
Right?
Yes,
if you're in love, come have a great time with your partner.
You might come twice within the month of February and be in love at one point and out at the other.
Yes,
right?
You could, totally. Anyway, so you find out about that at tongue-groove.com. And then if you want to learn about applied improvisation and the work that I do, go to bobbiblock.com, which is BOBBIBLOCK.com.
Yeah, great.
And that's that information.
Awesome, and I'll put links to those both in the audio notes and the visual notes so that people can find you more easily. And something that I always like to ask my guests, because this is the Transformational Storyteller podcast, and I feel like every great story has like a message or a theme or something. And so if someone were to open the book of your life and read it and and close it up again and walk away, what would a theme or an idea that you would want them to take away be?
Well, two things come to mind. One is inspired or taken by a similar question that I asked Dave Pasquesi of TJ and Dave, that I've told you about before. And I said, what's the one piece of advice you give to improvisers? And he said, pay attention. That's it. Pay attention. And I think paying attention in my life, paying attention to my friends and family, paying attention to my own needs, to their needs, paying attention to just keep your eyes and ears up, allows you to be flexible and connected and in tune and all the good things.
Yes.
So pay attention. But that's not mine. That's his. But you could probably get that if you opened a book of mine. I think it's what I said before. Instead of, I would say, it's not what should I say next. It's what did she just say? And those are also words to live by.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much. This was wonderful.
Thank you.
So much.
I love the questions that you ask. They're so in tune, and talk about being a great listener. Just really yes-anding who you talk to. It's really cool.
Thank you so much. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Transformational Storyteller podcast. As always, thanks to our episode sponsors, our production team at Rebel Hill Consulting, and of course, many thanks to you, the listener. Whoever you are, wherever you are, I hope you're creating stories that empower you and inspire others.